on in my life, I had vaguely heard of Sri Aurobindo. I recall studying one of his short poems in my English course during my school days in India. That one tiny piece of literature was all I knew about him. A mere poet whose abstruse poem we would have to prepare for the upcoming exam. Many years later, I had a vivid dream when I was living in San Francisco. In it, I saw a rishi, great being, clad in white, his kind gaze and a compassionate countenance enhanced by a long flowing white beard. He bowed his head a little as he placed one of his hands on his heart and said to me, "I am called Sri Aurobindo." I stood there facing him, my hands folded respectfully. Gently he spoke again. "Come, I'll show you something." I followed him and found myself in a strange place, a laboratory of sorts, full of many unfamiliar pieces of equipment. He pointed toward a telescope-like piece. He leaned in, put his eye on the tube, and looking through it, said, "I look at the earth. Whenever I spot a person who can participate in yoga, my work starts on that being." I humbly bowed my head, fully aware of the fact that I was in the presence of greatness beyond words. Then he uttered some observations pertaining to me, personal and far too beautiful to share here. He also implied that he had chosen to stay on the plane of consciousness right next to the earth to make his work easier. This plane of consciousness, known as subtle physical or pretlok in Sanskrit, is the very first area in which departed enter after leaving their physical bodies. A spirit may choose to stay in this realm for some time or an indefinite amount of time before embarking on some higher plane to which the spirit belongs. Generally speaking, beings like Sri Aurobindo dwell on the plane right next to divine. This singular level of existence, called the arena of the highest beings, is even beyond the reach of gods or angels who are worshipped and revered on our earth because of their limited abilities to fulfill the mundane desires of humans. In truth, very few get access to this particular plane reserved only for those who have attained the highest levels of spiritual evolution. Even some of our famous gurus with droves upon droves of disciples are denied access to this unique plane of existence. I know and speak from first-hand experience. I have seen a number of both past and present spiritual beings, including my own guru, on this highest plane of the truth light consciousness, or the plane of the perfect beings as it is called. But when this one particular well-known guru, who shall remain nameless, tried to enter this plane, the person was rejected by some invisible force. And this drama I saw a number of times getting enacted. The essence of this occurrence has been so beautifully described in a line by a Hindi poet. "Tum kehte kisko unnat, jag kehta kisko unnat." My Lord, your definition of greatness differs drastically from ours. The one considered great by this world may not be great in your estimation. The number of disciples or the opinions of crowds do not make you great. Only the permanent transformation of the ordinary consciousness into the divine consciousness is the key to entering the highest plane. In order to expedite the evolution of this entire planet, Sri Aurobindo has chosen as his dwelling place the subtle physical, a plane inhabited by all and sundry, including negative and dark forces. Even as such, nothing unwholesome can venture close to his vicinity unless they are ready to transform themselves. I speak from my experience when I say that he's watching over our earth from the subtle physical, which is only slightly more ethereal than the earth. During another interaction between us, mostly he spoke, I just listened meekly. He asked me if I had read his synthesis of yoga. At the time, I had not so much as heard of the title, what to speak of reading it. That was the beginning of our, shall I say, connection that turned into alliance forevermore. Soon after this experience in my sleep, oftentimes I was visited by the mother and then Sri Aurobindo and then the mother again. Sometimes they would come to visit me together and continue to do so for years to come. Physically, I have not seen them, yet meetings with them remained constant enough for me to feel that I know many aspects of them quite intimately. For example, the way Sri Aurobindo communicates is extraordinary. His tone is absolutely devoid of any pressure on you. He expresses himself in a manner so that even if you wish to decline his proposal, you should be able to do so without any hesitation. I have never seen anyone else interact in this manner, as if all is acceptable to him, and this is how a free and a recalcitrant spirit like myself was won over. I felt I had all the space I needed to pursue my own kind of evolution, and not in any structured way. From my many experiences with him, I realized Sri Aurobindo and the mother have transcended all the man-made constructs, and they always will be a glimmer on my sky like the evening star shining brightly to beckon me forward. After my first meeting with Sri Aurobindo, a few days later, as I came out of the elevator to walk toward my apartment, I was approached by an Oriental young man that happened to be one of my neighbors. "I'm leaving in a day's time," he said excitedly, "and I'm not taking anything with me other than my clothes. There is a stereo and lots of other stuff for grabs. Would you like to take a look and take whatever you like?" As I walked with him, I asked, "Why are you not taking your stuff with you?" "I'm going to be a resident of Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Sacramento." Happily, he answered, "I don't need anything anymore." It goes without saying, I was more than surprised at the mention of Sri Aurobindo's name. "How long have you known of Sri Aurobindo?" I asked. "A few months," he said. "I have been reading his literature, and I feel it is time for me to act on what I have read." As we reached the threshold of his apartment, I saw an assortment of objects strewn about inside. From television to stereo to kitchen gadgets were scattered across the room. I spotted a picture of Sri Aurobindo on his living room mantel shelf. Finally, I asked him, "You will take that picture with you, won't you?" "Do you want it?" he asked. "I'd love to," I replied, then hastily added, "But of course you will need it for yourself." "You may have it." He respectfully picked up the photo with both of his hands and smilingly offered it to me. I too, with great respect, received it in both of my hands. "If you like, I'll be happy to move my stereo to your place," he kindly suggested. "No, thank you," I answered. "You have given me a gift that pales all this other mundane stuff." From that onward, during my journey, if ever I had a query, I would write it down on a piece of paper and place it by this picture of Sri Aurobindo. Invariably, I would receive an answer from him, either in my dream state or at times from within myself. In a unique way, this small black and white picture of Sri Aurobindo has been a treasure. Years and years have gone by, and I still value that picture as a rare jewel. Though in the interim, many other photos of these two divine beings have found me. I have wondered many a time, what is it that binds me to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother? Is it the call of their supramental yoga? Their perfect spiritual integrity that I have noticed time and again at the core of their being? Is it their action for the sake of action to serve the divine without any ambition attached to it? Or maybe it is the pure brilliance of the several suns together radiating from their genius. Perhaps all of it and more. After India's independence from British rule, an emissary, and not just any emissary, but the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, was sent to Sri Aurobindo in Pondicherry, offering him no less than the presidentship of the country. But he declined. Over and over the request was sent, and despite the prestige of such a lofty position, he didn't budge. Some of his disciples importuned, but to him, his own yoga and time spent answering the naive questions of practitioners concerning spirituality in his ashram, he considered a far more valuable task than the presidency of India. Take note, this is the kind of importance and love he and the Mother gave to the sincere disciples who were committed to the highest. If ever one wonders, if divine had a disposition, what could it be like? The indisputable answer I find within me is like Sri Aurobindo. For a being as great as Sri Aurobindo, there is nothing in this world that could sway him from his continual state of peace and equanimity. Though I know of the time he chose to lose his temper just once in his life when a resident was extremely unruly and behaved impertinently with the Mother. Sri Aurobindo raised his voice loud and clear for all to understand that such misconduct will not be tolerated again. It was a lesson that this resident nor anyone else in this ashram would ever forget. In another instance, Sri Aurobindo was injured in an accident where his leg was compromised. The Mother appointed 3 disciples to look after him. They felt thrilled beyond measure to be able to serve their guru and considered it to be the most blessed segment of their lives. And they were always eager to be useful. For one thing, Sri Aurobindo hardly ever asked for anything. If he did, it would be with his innate civility and charm, something like, "Do you suppose you can pass such and such book over to me?" They would all rush together to fulfill the task that required only one person. I have spent a great deal of time imagining such scenarios and always came to the same conclusion, that he was an extraordinary manifestation of the divine that cannot be replicated. With his global consciousness as large as the universe, always a compassionate yet firm reminder to his sadhaks, disciples, of transformation of the human consciousness into the divine, and his inimitable and generous understanding of all other yogic paths. This world has not seen it before his advent. It is hard to imagine the kind of level he must have operated at. But one can have some idea of the state he used to be in. Mother tells us that once there was a huge hurricane that emerged from the nearby ocean and was knocking down everything in its path. While the tempest fumed outside, she hurried to Sri Aurobindo's room to help him close the windows. As she entered his room, she saw him calmly sitting on his desk, writing. The windows were open as usual, and not a single draft of raging winds outside had the courage to enter his room and disturb him in any way. Nature was passing by him on tiptoes with all her fury and devastation.